All right, let's not waste any time. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome from ETHKL, Mr. Matthew Tan from MDEC, Mr. Danish from 42KL, Mr. Tila. We welcome them to the stage, as well as our moderator, the organizer today, ETHKL. Let's welcome Harit. All right. Pass out the mics. Harit, I'll pass you the mic here. Can you guys just share these two mics between yourselves? Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Ross. So we're very lucky here to have three people from very different backgrounds to talk about how it is to be building in Malaysia in Web3. So without further ado, I'm just going to get you guys to kind of introduce yourselves to the audience for those who might not know you and what your how you play a role in this building of Malaysia. So maybe we can start with Matt. Probably most people will know you more. Who you are and kind of what you're doing to be building in Malaysia.
Matthew from ETHKL. So there's actually two ways that we're kind of doing it right now. So obviously the first way is by supporting grassroots community like ETHKL. So I think we've been doing that since 2018. So I think when it comes to supporting the community, right, there should be more focus on supporting the communities when they're actually smaller versus doing it when they are bigger. So I think add value more there. And I think the other thing that we kind of want to do, which I kind of talked about in the yesterday, was also just showing that we can build global products out of Malaysia. Thank you.
And Dinesh?
Very good afternoon. I've seen the crowd here today, very encouraging. A big salute to the organizers here. I think this is one of the first, or probably one of the biggest builder-based events in Malaysia. And we really hope that we can do more of this moving forward. So just a bit of intro about myself. My name is Danish. Some of you I probably have met across few engagements around the Web3 and blockchain space. Again, a government representative here in a blockchain event, and just now the previous panel, there was discussions about regulations, and looking at it, government seems sometimes is at odds, right, with regards to blockchain and etc. But let me assure you about one thing, right? Our position is we really want to help, from MDEC particularly, right? We really want to help to grow the ecosystem and hopefully drive more builders, talent pool, and hopefully also investments both from local domestic companies and also foreign companies into Malaysia. I think that is what we do, and that is what is my role and my team members' roles. Today in the crowd, probably there's Fun and also Anfal, who's part of my team, if they're around. They are just on top, and etc. So hopefully we can try to support you guys moving forward.
And MDEC is also a silver sponsor for the event, so thank you very much.
Oh, no worries.
And lastly, Tila.
Right, so I'm Tila, and I'm actually from 42 Kuala Lumpur. So some of you may actually not know. How many of you have heard of 42 Kuala Lumpur before? Right, that's great. We mentioned about funding, we mentioned about building in Malaysia and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you also need talents to build. How many of you are looking for talents when you're building? Right, so it's always a problem. So that's where we actually come in. So we are a 3-year-old organization in Malaysia. We're part of Sunway Innovation Lab, which is the corporate innovation arm of Sunway, who also do venture building, startup investments, accelerator programs, and so on. So what we do is that we build talents. We are targeting at building 10,000 highly skilled digital talents over 10 years. So at the end of the day, in order to support the ecosystem, we need talents, and that's exactly what we do.
And we'll go with Tila for the next question first. So obviously, building in Malaysia, the first question I can think of other than introduction is, what are the benefits of building in Malaysia? Like, why would it matter compared to building in some other country?
Right, so in the last few years, a lot of startups from Japan, Korea, and also UK very recently has been wanting to establish themselves in Malaysia. So they all come through our accelerator program that we actually do very specifically for them. And when we ask what's the reason to actually bring them over, they always mention two things. So number one, ease of doing business is comparatively decent in Malaysia in comparison to multiple other places. Even though we might think not, but it is for them, they actually say that it's actually quite easy for them to actually come to Malaysia and establish themselves here before they take a step to countries like Indonesia, Thailand, and so on. And the second mention is on our talents. So our talents pool can actually speak Mandarin very well. They can actually speak English, and they can also speak Malay. So if you think about it, Mandarin, China is a great leap forward for them. English, pretty much the entire region, right? And then you also have Malay, which is very useful for them to actually establish connections with the Indonesian. And so these are the two main things that they actually always tell us that it's really important for them to be part of Malaysia when they actually start. Is the same thing for any companies when it comes to the Web3 space.
And Dinesh, from the government's point of view?
Okay, very interesting, right? Maybe let me just give you a bit of snapshot about the talent pool of digital talent in Malaysia. Currently, MDEC has around 3,000 digital companies that we track, various. It covers all breadth, including cybersecurity, blockchain, and etc. and all this. Today, it is around 210,000 for what we call it knowledge workers or digital talent. Close to 90% is local. Right, 90%. After 27 years of driving the digital economy, I think the amount of talent pool is quite mature as of this moment. And that also echo to what you have really mentioned just now. Let's look at it like this, right? Malaysia in these current times, right, is very unique. Our talent, or Malaysian talent particularly, right, has one particular key advantage. Since independence, we are the only nation that has diversity, you know, and this is quite important, right? If you're going to operate a global idea, a global hub, and you want to run this out of a particular location, you need this kind of talent to work with around the world or within the region. So, if in my opinion, right, that is something very, very key. Of course, if you were to look at bigger talent pools like India and China, billions of population and etc., there are different niches. One thing I know from some of the people I've met across this event, right, and particularly builders from Malaysia, one thing they see is quality. Quality, I think, is something that we are good at, and that is something that we really need to leverage out of here. Second thing is about solving problems, right? Creativity in that sense, right? In this part of the region, right, I think Malaysians have a knack for this, and that is something that we should leverage for innovation and growth. Just some of my thoughts on that.
And Matt, as the OG builder?
So I think both Tila and Ganesh have covered the points I wanted to cover. So to sum it up, right, and we were actually having this conversation yesterday during lunch. It's diversity by default, right? And so we are really unique in this position, right? So there are obviously some countries where I think there are workplace policies where, you know, diversity has to be built into that system. But in Malaysia, right, it's diversity by default. So it comes naturally to us. So much so that we don't really know it's there until we actually start going abroad and immersing yourself in other environments so it's one of those things like where, you know, you have to actually go out to see that what you have here is pretty good. So that's how I want to sum it up. And in general, right, I think perhaps it's from that diversity also, we're actually quite adaptable. Like we will adapt, right? And maybe it's through the history, the culture, even going back into history and stuff, right? A lot of the makeup of Malaysians are immigrants, right? So I think it's just built in. You will adapt. If it's hard, then you adapt. If it's easy, then you take it easy. So and the other thing, as a founder, yeah, I know if you compare, so obviously cost of living, inflation is something that affects all of us, right? So there's no escaping for that. That's the way the world is. But relatively speaking, right, if you compare, let's say, some of our neighbors down south, right, it's not the cost living here is relatively lower. And you can actually get, I mean, obviously we all want to do better, but for that same amount of money, you can get a pretty good quality of life down here in Malaysia. Yeah.
And on that note, Matt, just since you mentioned the diversity by default thing, and in Web3, people work kind of from everywhere in the world. From your experience over the last sort of more than 10 years in this space, what's something different about the work life or the work culture in Malaysia versus in other countries, especially in Web3?
Work culture. So I don't think, Harry, I don't think it's just Web3, right? It's more the entire culture. So I'm going to say this on a more of a positive note. So we're generally, for what it's worth, I think we're generally more laid back and chillax, right? That's the way it is. So maybe on the plus point, we don't get burned out as fast. I guess we look at some of the other countries like, I'm not going to name the countries, but again, I think it's much more stressful there. We tend to be more chillax, a little bit more relaxed. But I say this in a good way, right? Because as a builder, right, one of the things that you want is you want persistence, you want grit, the ability to move forward, consistency, right? So I think you burn out too fast, right? Not good. No, you go up there, then you go down again. So that's one of the other things. The other things, of course, there's definitely a lot of tea times and breaks. But again, that's fine. So the positive side, right? The way I look at it, and what I shared with my teammate over there, it's he used to call it team bonding. So right. So you have that team bonding during your data sessions.
Yeah, and maybe that's the reason why ETHKL's been there for a long time.
For better or worse.
Hopefully not burnt out. Not for a while. When it's only fair that I've asked benefits of Malaysia, that then I ask the opposite question of what are some disadvantages, because we're not here to shield Malaysia necessarily. So what are some disadvantages of building in Malaysia? And maybe Danesh can start.
Asking the girl. It's better to ask to the builders themselves about that for a real honest answer, I would say. But actually, if we want to speak about Malaysia's disadvantages, right, I would rather say is what can Malaysia actually learn, right? Let's look for example, right? Let's be really honest. Vietnam. Vietnam is a hub or a builder hub currently now, very hot within the region. But they have one problem. They are very good at efficiency. They are very good at efficiency, following and creating what is being instructed. That's their skill, right? And that's their strength, right? And that's why there's a lot of volume that is going over there. This is nothing new, this concept. Even in one of the very mature industries like the BPO industry and etc., right? The same concept is also there. Where do companies locate is basically based on three key things, or where the demand is. Number one is the availability of talent. Number two is cost of doing business, right? And then, of course, number three is how is the ecosystem going to be? So if we look from that perspective, right, if Malaysia wants to learn, right, how do we scale, right? How do we get our builders to create projects or drive demands of projects that would be tangible and usable to the traditional economies? I'll give you an example, right? Recently, I met a few companies trying to sell blockchain to e-commerce parties. I would not say who are the names of those e-commerce parties, but probably you all know already who are the major ones. And then the e-commerce parties did mention, why try to go and recreate the wheel when something is working so well, right? Why introduce blockchain to something that is really doing awesome currently? Now, that's the issue, right? Where are the practical solutions that is going to happen? So now when I was talking to this at a recent Congress, World Congress of IT, I was having a conversation with another blockchain company, specifically Canadian one, specifically specializing in payment. They said the pitch should be different, right? So try to think about this. SMEs that are transacting cross-border using any of those platforms, right? They have one big issue, settlement of payment. If you're doing cross-border, settlement of payment takes a few days. If you have a solution that is black box using blockchain, and that blockchain uses the settlement using crypto or whatever, then you have the settlement instantly. So that is the solution the Canadian blockchain company is providing. That's practical. That impacts a lot of people. That is what we need to do to create that value in Malaysia. ETHKL's business is sustainable. As far as we see, they are a global player. We have CoinGecko. We hope to create more of this from the likes of the builders of the future. And that would be the intent that we really want to do.
Thanks. And Tila next.
Yeah, so I just really want to echo what he mentioned, right? So at the end of the day, when it comes to like building, it's really about solving a particular problem that the industry needs. So most of the time we build for fun, which is a great thing. But at the same time, when you want to scale it further and then you start looking for funding, and then we always say, oh, Malaysia, a lot of builders will always then say, oh, Malaysia, we don't have funding and everything. But from the VC perspective, when we actually talked to our own VCs and everything, they mentioned, actually, we have the fund. But when we talk to the builders, they always mention that, oh, this is something that we are doing, but we are not actually trying to solve anything. So it's always about products trying to find a problem. So that's a huge, huge, huge problem, right? So that's the challenge. So we need to think about how we create our products, right? So again, a couple of different things that I can also mention. In Malaysia, we have at about 55% of population who actually knows about blockchain technology and also crypto. And we have a very, very good penetration for crypto assets in Malaysia as well. So, but when it comes to the SMEs, when it comes to the corporate companies, when we talk to them, they always say, actually, we are interested in these things, but they always, the first thing that come to their mind when I actually run workshops with them, corporate innovation workshops, the first thing that they will say is, like word clouds, right? So like 60%, 60 participants there, and we'll do word cloud. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about blockchain and also cryptocurrencies? Fraud, rug pull, right? All of these negativity are the ones that appears first, not the opportunities. But why? So we need to change this mindset to them. We need to be able to educate to them. Now, how we do it as builders. So to showcase to them that there is solutions for their problems. We don't necessarily have to say, oh, this is solved by using blockchain. No. As long as it actually solves their problem, they actually don't give a damn whether it's actually a blockchain solution or not. The first thing that they will always ask is, how come I can't do this with Web 2 solutions? Correct. Right? So we need to change that perspective. But when you do, there's a huge amount of potential in Malaysia. Because one great example, I would say, Sunway universities is adopting digital certification in the blockchain, using blockchain for their digital certification. And that's a problem that is required for them to solve, right? Because a lot of the times the problem is that they're trying to solve is when companies want to verify someone, they always have to call. And there are 10,000 students, actually more than 10,000 students. Takkan they want to actually call every single one of them to try and verify them, right? So there must be a more practical way. So yeah, that's just one example.
And Matt?
I'll just chime in. Covered a lot already. So when you talk about Web3, right? So traditionally, when you're building general tech, right, it's always the ecosystem, the networks and stuff like that. So again, something I talked about, but when it comes to Web3, it's actually relatively easier. The reason being is that networks portion, it is supposed to be decentralized, right? So that's the premise. It might not be fully there yet, but I think it's definitely moving towards that. So when you talk about the Web3 and stuff, then you have the benefits of access to data and ownership. So you've removed, basically you remove one hurdle there. As an entrepreneur, so we have a lot of talented folks here. That goes without saying. But again, Malaysia is in a unique position in the sense that if you look at the population, right, in comparison, let's say, obviously, we're not as small as Singapore, but not as large as Vietnam. So then again, you look at stuff like so obviously with lesser numbers, you have a smaller talent pool to choose from, as compared to Vietnam, where, in terms of demographics, it's a younger crowd, very focused on STEM. So I think that kind of presents a challenge if you want to, if you need access to a lot of younger talent.
Okay, I like how generally it's not so much disadvantages, but things to learn from. For Danesh, next question. What are some opportunities for maybe internationals or nomads who want to be building out of Malaysia? Like, what can they look for in Malaysia?
Sure. So this is, I think this is very, very important, right? Despite also looking at the local agenda that I shared about, right, about developing in Malaysia, one of the key things is we need the support of global talent globally. This is no way are we going to build a good ecosystem here without the support of all our regional neighbors and all our global neighbors. Some of the best talent are all over the world. Malaysia needs to capitalize on that and use this as an opportunity to create a hub here moving forward, right? So for nomads, right, we already have a nomad visa. We launched it last year, right? I heard some of you members are already part of that. We hope to encourage the usage of that, right, to drive that particular agenda. We have also what we call it MTAP. It's a Tech Entrepreneur Pass meant for founders who are creating companies here in Malaysia. But something also I wanted to share, right, for the benefit of both the foreign entrepreneurs or foreign builders, and also, in fact, even domestically, right? The government is really offering all types of incentives, right? We're offering fiscal, which is tax breaks or etc., to support companies or builders or etc., to create opportunities around this area. We also have grants, right? The recent announcement, something that I just want to share, just so that everyone is aware of this, right? The recent budget announcement by the government of Malaysia, they granted 1.5 billion ringgit to support startups. And what happened was, in the Star, you can just go, it's not published, it's not my opinion, right? It is in the public. The president of the SME Association mentioned, why allocate money to startups with unproven business models when the money should go to mature business models? Now, again, right, from our perspective, right, we are bipartisan, right? Innovation comes from startups. Scale is when startups become SMEs, right? And I think that is something that we must support continuously. So there are funds that is being allocated to drive, foreign builders, local builders to leverage and grow from Malaysia, right? And how you want to access this? There are many parties in the government that have that capabilities to do so. So do reach out to us offline for us to help support that particular intent, etc.
Right. And Tila, so 42 is expanding, I think, quite aggressively across Malaysia. So can you expand a bit more on kind of why you're doing that and why you think that Malaysia is this talent pool that maybe some of the Web3 builders here who are not from Malaysia can potentially look at?
Yeah, so great stuff, right? So it's echoing from what Danesh mentioned about talent pool earlier as well, right? So thankfully, when 42 started in Malaysia, we wanted to solve a couple of problems. Number one, pace of education is slow in the way that if you think about it, let's just say university wants to create a blockchain course or any other type of like new technology like AI or stuff like that. It takes about 1 year for them to create the course, develop, get approval from the Ministry of Education, and then after that, they actually need to go through 3 years of education to get that degree before they come out as a talent. That's 4 years. That's 4 iPhone generations, right? So tech trend moves really, really fast. We need to be very, very fast, right? So that's the biggest problem that we were trying to solve. And the second is that companies come to us and say, hey, we have so many talents, but they can't really fit with the industry because they are not plug and play. They still have to retrain them for about 6 months. tech vacancies, sometimes it takes about 3 months for them to actually fill up. So there is this problem that we were trying to solve. And how can we solve this? With alternative education. So very, very interestingly, MDEC was the one who actually approached Sunway, so very helpful for that. And they mentioned that we are actually very keen to support how we can do alternative education. And our education model is completely free. So you don't have to pay a single cent even after you get a job, right? So when we did this, we're part of this network called 42, which is in like 52 different cities around the world. Started in Paris. So it is already a global talent pool for pretty much everyone. And in Malaysia, when we started it, we were a bit skeptical in the beginning because of the business model. But we had a lot of corporate partners who said, actually, we'll fund this. And as long as we can actually build that talent pipeline. And we've been here for 3 years, and we've produced like more than 350 digital talents. And our school has no teachers, so which means these type of talents are extremely resourceful. Like Danish mentioned, Malaysians are problem solvers, and they're very adaptive. And you throw them into this environment, they do very well. Having said that, we also looked into the opportunities. Now, we need to be able to not just focus on KL. There's too much focus in KL, right? So we need to get out of the KL stuff. And just very recently, about 4 days ago, the Chief Minister of Penang has just launched 42 Penang. So we are expanding to make sure that, thank you. Yeah. So everyone there has that opportunity as well. And we also have 42 in Iskandar Johor, which is close to our border, Singapore as well. So that's great. And in the next 1 to 2 years, we are looking at expanding to Miri, Kuching, and also Kota Kinabalu to make sure that we are able to produce. So, thank you. How many of you are 42 students here? Yeah, it's quite a number of them. Actually, probably some are preparing for the pitch later. Right, so it's a proven model, and we get all the corporate partners to actually take up these talents. And of course, when building, we need talents. Without talents, you can't build. You can have the fund, you can have $1 billion, but if you can't get the right type of talent to be in your company, we can't. And the other thing is, we are not restricting the talents to be Malaysians only. It's open to 17 and above, but anyone from any part of the world can actually come and be part of it, and it is still free for them. We have a lot of talents from Indonesia coming in. We have talents from Middle East coming in. We have a lot of like different varieties. So it's really a talent, digital talent hub, I would say.
All right, and for Matt, I think we have maybe time for like a couple last questions. But for Matt specifically, you've met a lot of builders from around the world in Web3. What are some maybe unique characteristics of Malaysian builders that you've seen compared to people from other places?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's very Malaysian.
I think I can sum it up and say, yeah. So, so I'm just going to take like a more relaxed approach. I'm going to follow that Malaysian style, right? So I think what's really unique is if you go into an office of a typical Malaysian company or even a startup, right? The language and the food, right? It's always interesting. So like obviously, so you go to US, so everyone speaks English, right? But you go into the Malaysian setup, right? Then you will find groups of people speaking dialects, and then you have Manglish, and then you have obviously Malay, and a combination of 3 or 4 languages put together. I just find that really unique and special. So I think that's what makes it special.
Food is always good.
Sorry?
Having good food in Malaysia is always good.
Yeah, I want to start out with say we have a strong foodie culture.
But eat healthy, please.
Fair.
And final question. So for the people here in the audience or anyone who's watching online, like what can they do to help build Malaysia or help specifically in Ethereum or Web3? How can they help to build Malaysia to be the next sort of global hub? And maybe Matt can start.
So I think everyone here is already doing it, right? Show your support to the local community. And so give yourself a clap, right? And I think the other thing that if you want to do, right, So this is like obviously a much more vague question, but figure out one thing that you can do and focus on that thing. If everyone does that one bit small part, right, it adds up. You have a crowd of 100 folks, you do 1%, that adds up to 100%. So figure out what you want to contribute, whether it's supporting your local community or just getting the word out or being part of the community or building something. Yeah.
And Tila will go next.
Yeah, I would say ETHKL is amazing, and we have a very strong ETH community in Malaysia, right? So it's very, very important because let's just come from the talent perspective. For talents, they're always looking for opportunities. And how do they come about opportunities? When they have events like this, when they have growing community, and when the people who are participating in these communities are actively helping those who are building up or budding up talents, right? So that synergy is so, so important. Because at the end of the day, these are the talents that you would want to take into your pipeline to be part of your company and to grow together. So I think, yeah, what ETHKL is doing, for example, is just very amazing. And we need more of that.
Thank you. And Dinesh.
Okay, the last one. Okay, so I think you've heard a lot from the conversations here today. But what I want to really share about in terms of how do we really scale this, right? Scale the builder community. How do we scale more Web3 blockchain stuff here in Malaysia? The concept of blockchain is decentralized, right? Let's be really honest, right? There's, in fact, even in Malaysia, I think myself, Fan, Anfal, my team members and etc. we spent close to 1.5 years trying to gauge the community, all right? Meeting up with various parties and etc. And the concept of decentralized means differing views, right, on things and etc. But to be really honest with you, right, if you want change and growth to be accelerated, it has to come from a unifying front, from all differing views. I'm telling you why, because this is the same thing in all the other verticals that is happening now. Cybersecurity, the global business services, and the various other AIs all are coming together to have that singular view. The government only wants to listen to a singular view, right? And this has to be coming from a front of multiple people, builders, businessmen, and etc. So I think this is my message to all of you all. I mean, we have here members from the association, Access Blockchain. We work closely with them. Arvin, Jason, they're sitting here. We are working closely with them. We wish to work close together with the other fraternities, ETHKL, the off-chain community, and etc., and many others, to come under a united front to drive this growth moving forward. Only by doing this can we move faster and hopefully benefit everyone in the long run. That's all I want to share in terms of that direction and activities.
All right, and with that, please, everyone, thank the panel for sharing the audience today. And back to you, Ross.
All right, thank you very much to all the speakers. I welcome you back to your seats. Let's give them another big, big round of applause. As well as to our moderator, Harit, who did a fantastic job. So you guys have heard there's definitely a lot of interest in the industry. There's a lot of government funding and grants as well under the new budget. So projects, please get connected with the right people. They are here in the audience. You know, you can talk to MDEC, you can talk to Access Blockchain. They are the ones that can put you in front of the right people, in front of the right funding to get it for your project. Okay, we want all projects to succeed.